happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Did you do
I hope so.
anything fantastic?
My mom did a nostalgic birthday like the ones we used to have in the 80s and 90s, with all the little things and the colored fringes and balloons, as though I was 10. But it was a lot of fun. It was family and a few friends, so it was lovely.
That's amazing. That's like an experience in of itself. Speaking about experiences, like it's not just a regular birthday. My mom used to make me when I was 5 to like 14. She made a special cake every year. But this was in the 70s, 80s, maybe a little bit, when there weren't like fancy places that made special cakes. So she would make it herself.
It was sheet cake, like a sheet cake with a frosting on top, and maybe some of our characters on like a whole Barbie inside of a cake.
That's right.
But this is what's beautiful about it. I mean, it's actually well thought of, and not just go to a shop and pay someone to design a cake to the theme. This is why I liked it. Like, she made my favorite foods. She made me a watermelon cake because I'm trying to not eat so much sugar, or well, that's what she tells herself I'm trying not to do.
But that's great that like bit of nostalgia, which is really, it's memory, right? It's memories that are the things that experiences create that also happen at certain restaurants. Not necessarily all restaurants, because a lot of restaurants are just come here and eat.
Yeah.
Yours are not that. They're definitely experiences. I had the pleasure of experiencing a couple of them.
I'm happy you did.
When we were at Aliyah. What always stuck out to me in the experience that we had, sure the food, sure the space is beautiful, sure there's fish on display that's uncooked and chilled, which is amazing. But you were like, did you see the turtle? You have to come see the turtle.
Betsy.
And Betsy, the turtle, right. Betsy, which is an interesting part of the whole thing because it's not necessarily something that a restaurant would tell you that it's going to have, but it's still a memory that I have of the whole experience. I guess
that's your takeaway, Betsy.
Not my takeaway, just that you were super excited about it and like.
Oh, I'm like a 5-year-old in a candy shop when she comes up. Everyone's like, "Okay, we saw her." I'm like, "No. Did you actually see her? She comes up." I get really excited about her.
Yeah, and you did, and it created that memory and made my experience eating there and being there more memorable, which is sort of the crux of what House of Attention tries to create. And I think, not that you preemptively were like, every time someone comes in, I'm going to talk about the turtle, but like you just embodied that and that's what you create. So with that in your mind, tell me a little bit about how you approach a project from that experience perspective, not just we have to cook great food.
So I go through a full metamorphosis when I actually think of a project, depending on how it works. But let's say with Aliyah, the owners of the land and the space came to me and they wanted to do a project and they wanted me just to develop it and whatever. I saw it and I was like, no. They were like, what? No, I don't think so. I went and I actually sat on that plot and that area when it was nothing for like a couple of days, and it felt to me like a Greek restaurant because of the rocks, because of the water, because of that whole area feel. And I have this affinity to Greece and a love to Greek culture and Greek food, and in my head one day I'll retire and buy a home there or something. But I go to the place, I feel it, and then we go through the whole process of what does this feeling, how does it translate? What are we going to call it? So we're creating this restaurant. What kind of restaurant do I want to do? I want to do a fish restaurant. Okay, so let's work with that. And then we come up with the name, and then we think of all the touch points that you, as a first-time guest, you come in, you walk in, the scents that you smell, the colors that you see, the transportation. Like, everyone can eat at home or buy something from the supermarket or whatever. But if you make it a point to leave your house, to go with someone, celebrate, go to a place, it needs to transport you, because why else would you do that? And you'd move into the feeling, and it just needs to be a full feeling. Even the colors, the mood, even the sequence of service and the kind of service and the kind of staff in every venue is totally different. The training is totally different. The way they receive you is, again, different depending on the space. So if you want to go to somewhere fresh and light and whatever, you'd go to Aliyah. If you want something more masculine, more hearty and fun. At night, that seems a bit like a Frank Sinatra at night mode. You'd go to the Good Butcher. So every place has its own identity. And for me, I become a bit obsessive about everything you will see and touch. Like I touch the bottom of the tables, the plates, I have to touch them and pour water on them. And before I decide I want this plate or I want this cutlery, and I start holding the plates. And the smell of the place is again something that people don't notice it, but it's one of the most memorable things in the fish restaurant. I have this concoction I boil next to the fish display, so nobody will ever pass by and feel something's fishy. Never. I boil this cinnamon and fresh herbs and whatever next to it, so that it's the whole place smells a specific smell. So people, as soon as they walk in, I'm like, it always smells of this. What is this scent? I'm like, no, it's not a scent. We created. It's touch points, right? It's how you feel in a space. And that all goes through a whole process to actually create a space, then create a menu, then create the identity, then create what the people are dressing, how do they smell, what do they wear, how do they speak to you, from where do they approach you. It's all a process. And then you get a restaurant like Leah and you see Betsy.
Right. I love all of that because I don't think, not only do people not practice all that, because it's a lot more work. Right? Instead of just like punching out another place that does another thing.
That looks exactly the same, that has almost the same menu. I'm really privileged and lucky that this is what I love and this is what I do. So I also really, really love interior design and art. So I get to incorporate that too with what I'm doing. A lot of people don't understand why I would go on a specific trip to buy art, like actual authentic art for the space. It needs to feel real, right? I enjoy it and I'm happy and privileged and lucky a million times that this is what I get to do. I mean, if I was an accountant, I would shoot myself in the face. I would hate my life, but I love this. And, I love gardening and plants and trees. So I get to plant actual real trees in my restaurants. And everyone thinks these are all fake, like the preserved trees or whatnot. I'm like, no, they're real trees. Each tree has a name. We dedicate them to special people in our lives and whatever. And we actually take care of the trees and the plants. You've seen Khalila, right? Have you gone in?
Yeah,
and it's like a little tiny jungle, right, on the Red Sea. And everyone's like, are these real plants? Yes, they're real plants. We take care of them. And I get to exercise all the joys I have in life in my work. So I'm very, very lucky.
I felt that, everything you just were explaining, because I was there in all three of those places. I could feel that, which sounds like that's what you're saying, is that that's the point, is that the guest feels something different. They may feel it because they smelt that thing that you put next to the fish. That might be the thing that makes them have that feeling. Or it might be
but they're
because
not,
when
they're not conscious about it. Yeah.
Right. They're not conscious about it. Right. So you're leading them through this experience that they're conscious about some parts and unconscious about other parts, but holistically it creates this feeling that they have, which is better than something else and creates those memories we were talking about earlier.
And also I have the flex to tell future partners or clients or whatever that I'm working with, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. Because in the beginning, I faced a lot of resistance to how I want to do things. Oh, no, you don't need to do that. Yes, I need to do that. This is how I'm going to do it. And now, like, I just opened a restaurant in the Red Sea project in the addition. And there was this whole conversation. Oh, the restaurant was almost ready and we had to redesign and whatever. But then I was like, I need a tree in the middle of the restaurant. A big ass olive tree in the middle of a restaurant. And they were like, what? What do you mean? No, I'm like, it needs to happen. And I can actually get to do that, right? Because they've seen how it feels, they've seen that it could be taken care of. Because people would say right off the bat that, no, they won't live indoors. Yes, they live indoors. Look at this. It's been living here for 3 years now. And it's flourishing and it's growing and it's lovely and it's beautiful. You just need to know how to take care of it. Or no, it's not necessary. No, it is. Look at the spaces that don't have it, then sit in a space that actually has this live, beautiful thing. So I get to flex a bit, if you know what I mean.
And did you start telling me about that because maybe I got this wrong, but did you have to earn that? Like now I can say, hey, addition, we're putting a tree in the middle of this, but you couldn't always say that.
I mean, in the beginning, you have to think about it. When I started, no one was doing what I was doing. Like a Saudi female working in this industry, opening a restaurant with other people, that wasn't a thing. It's happening now, amazing. But when I first started, that wasn't a thing.
Maybe I'll pick that apart a little bit because like there's two pieces of that. There's Saudi Arabia and how it's changed in the last 8-9 years, and
5 minutes. It
right,
was like
5 minutes. But like you've spoken a lot about how growing up you never thought that you could work, drive, own anything, own a business, but your family was
no,
like
not
they always
own a
had
business.
businesses.
No, not own a business. That's not correct. Not own a business that I want to work in. Like I could own a business, but I couldn't really be standing in it, serving people, being in the kitchen. In my head, that was like, it's impossible. This is why I kept leaving. I went for university and I left, and then I came back, and then I left again. Then I went to the UK, then I went to Egypt, and it was always, where can I exercise my creativity and what I wanted to do until I could.
Right. I like the distinction. So the two sides of that I'm hearing is there's the Saudi piece, but then there's just the general piece of like you have never had a restaurant. And when you've never done something, people who may be helping you or watching you are like, well, you don't know what you're talking about yet because you haven't owned anything yet, which is ridiculous. But
yeah. But after I opened my first restaurant, I did it with my late husband, and then I was hired to do other work, and then I could start flexing. But then when money comes into it, and when you partner with people who want to open restaurants or want to do this, you need to convince them of why and how and when. And in the end, a lot of people are thinking of the return. So how is this going to affect the restaurant? Before I had to like spend a long time and explain to them. Now I'm just like, go, try it, see it, look at the space, see how it feels, and then come and speak to me.
Right. When you say the first restaurant, is it the social kitchen? Is that
yes?
Or is
yes.
it the cafe before? Okay.
No, I had a cafe before, but the cafe was like on top of a shop. I used to cook in a central kitchen and come and bring the sandwiches and salads and desserts and whatnot. There was no hot kitchen. Everything was prepared and sold in the place. So the first actual restaurant was the social kitchen.
And so the social kitchen is what you found and created that place that you're like, I can stand in it, I can be in all the places, and this is what I want it to be. Although you still faced a bit of, well, I don't know. Then you did social bakery, and then you started doing Good Butcher, et cetera, et cetera. Through that process, at some point, people realized and saw that what you're doing and how you're doing it is not just good for the people, but using your investor point or your business partner point, it's good for the spreadsheet. It's good for the P&L also. Yeah. But people that are like that, as opposed to people that are like you, don't easily tie that off and be like, oh yeah, let's put a live tree in the middle of it, and that'll cost an extra $40,000 plus $15,000 to renovate the thing, and we'll get that return back down here on cell 14 where it all ties off.
I'm very clear of roles and responsibilities from the beginning. When I enter a partnership or when I enter into a project, I'm very transparent and clear of what I do and what I don't, where do I end and where does the partner start? What kind of partnership this is and the framework of this partnership. If I'm hired to do something, it's again something totally different. But I reached a point in my career, in my life, where I can say, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it. I know this will work and I know this won't. So I will not take a project that I know won't work. I won't do it.
And do you do that the same way you were talking about some of your restaurants before? Like you feel it, like you go and you not necessarily the space, but like of course you feel the space, but like is that part of how you judge whether or not
and I'll sit and I'll have my CFO sitting next to me in the pitch meeting, and I'm like, I'm sorry, this is not going to work. And he's like, let's just like, no, it won't work because I don't see the need for what they want. Sometimes people think they need a specific thing when they actually don't. I think I have a way of doing certain things, but there are certain things I know I can't do and I won't be good at. So I say, I don't think I'm the right person for this.
And tell me a little bit about the theoretical part of that, or how it's proven to be important. Because a lot of times people just can't see if it's not tied off to something that is either a number or a KPI or something like that. But then when you create something that people just love and go to, and no one can tell you why that is, everybody wants to do that thing, right? You see, all the business people are like, let's repeat that. But at the same time, you're like, you can't really repeat that. Or I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You
but
can't
I feel
copy vibe. You can't copy
Right.
vibe. You can't. It just won't work.
Totally. So tell me at a higher level, why do you think that people react to that?
Some people are very strong in certain things, and some people lack the ability to see the creative side, but they can feel it, right? They cannot replicate or they cannot be creative. The fact that, thank God, knock on wood, thank you, God, I have some sort of formula with me, my team. I have an amazing team that helps me achieve what's inside my head. And they help me achieve it in a way where it makes sense financially, it feels right, it's designed properly. I mean, sometimes they sit and yell at me like, no! Like, wait, let's just take a deep breath because I think this is going to work. But some people just want that, but they actually don't understand that it takes a lot of effort and time. And, I have a huge team behind me. People think, yeah, why can't you just make it again? I'm like, it's not done so easy. It takes a long time to actually have the outcome that you want. I always, I have a very funny metaphor. When people want to have children, there are various ways to, let's say, get pregnant. If the baby is delivered at 3 or 4 months, the baby most probably won't make it. At 7 months, there's a higher chance to make it. At 9 months, you definitely will have a baby, a healthy baby. There is a process, there is a time. It takes time. You can't just throw money at a problem and say, okay, let's open a restaurant now. No, it doesn't work like that. I work with developers and then we'll go to a location and they're like, we want a French restaurant here. And I'm like, okay, I understand. You try and you try and you try, and the space and the kitchens. And then you say, first of all, the market, 1, 2, and 3, does it need? Do you have enough restaurants? Do you not? Is there a gap in the market? But this space is too small for a restaurant, right? Because some people don't really understand what is the back end, what's the fore end, what's the front of house, the back of house. It's a restaurant. It doesn't work like that. And I always say it's very difficult for investors to open restaurants. Restaurateurs and investors are very difficult partners because it doesn't work the same way. And how much you need to wait and what you need to put into a restaurant for it actually to mature. You can't just get returns. You can't make money from the first year. It doesn't work like that. And sometimes I have really difficult issues with people that want to invest in restaurants thinking, oh, restaurants, you can make so much money in restaurants. I'm like, no, that's not how you have to think about it.
Talking about investors and the relationship between how hard it is to open a restaurant and what they want, it just doesn't happen like that. And those of us that do the doing of restaurants know that the margins are super tight and there's so many things that are creating even more challenges than ever before. But shifting this conversation to the feeling that the guests have, part of why I love culinary, and I say it like that and don't say restaurants because I think you can have culinary involved in things that are not restaurants. Years ago, I had an event that I would do that really was about watching a movie, but you ate 6 or 12 courses that were paired with the movie. And earlier in this conversation, you were like, you're going to go out. You're not going out to be fed. You're going out to have an experience that is different than eating in your house. And the point I was going to make is I like to always talk about that time in creating that theatrical culinary experience, if we could call it that was paired with the movie, is that it's very, very impactful to the guests. My theory partially is because you're using more senses to do that thing than you are in most other things that you do in your life. Like when you go running, taste isn't involved. Scent isn't necessarily involved. I always say to people, like, the Apple store smells like something. You don't really know that, but every time you walk into an Apple store, your
It
olfactory
smells like the
system is
Apple
like,
store.
oh, I'm in the Apple store, and it enhances your experience at the Apple store in that moment. So to come back to my question and the idea that you're creating this customer journey for them with all these touch points, why do you think what you do affects them in such a visceral and emotional way?
I think I'm one of the very few restaurateurs in Saudi Arabia that's actually on the floor all the time. I go speak to people, I ask them about the experience, and I become part of their celebrations, their experiences, proposals, all kinds of stuff. And the way I do it, and I also perceive it, is I feel this is part of my personal hospitality, that they're coming into my home. So when you're walking into the doors, you're not just walking into the restaurant, you're walking into the place where I'm feeding you, right? I'm feeding you, I'm taking care of you, my team is taking care of you. We're there to make you happy. And we're there to change. If you had a really bad day, you come to the restaurant, your day will become better. Sometimes, I actually had a couple on Valentine's 2 years ago or something. Both of them were on their phone, and I actually went to the table, took the phones off of their hands, and I told them, once you're finished with your dinner, I'll give you the phones on your way out. And they both looked at me. And you have to understand, in Arabic culture, this is not something that is very common, that somebody just walks into your space. I mean, even abroad, that's not that much of a typical behavior that you would see in a restaurant. But I was so distraught by them spending Valentine's Day on their phones. And I'm like, what? You're here together. If you want to be on your phones, go home. She looks at me and she started smiling in a like, is this a crazy lady talking to us right now? But after that dinner, they came up to me and they were like, thank you very much. We haven't had a conversation like this in a while. You know, we felt that we were at school and the headmistress was upset with us and took our phones. In the beginning, they were just a bit uncomfortable, but then they had a conversation, then they talked together. And I always get involved with my guests in one way or the other. And it warms my heart sometimes when somebody tells me, you know, I'm going to propose today and I want this. And when they go into how they're proposing and what they want us to bring to them and how we want to surprise her. And it feels like everyone that comes in becomes part of my life, especially when we interact. And I think this is part of the whole Saudi hospitality, that when somebody walks into your home, you're always welcoming them, making sure they're happy, making sure they're eating, making sure they have what they want. And if something is not to their liking, you're always fixing it or you're always trying to fix it. So I think that's a big part of how they feel when they enter the restaurants. I mean, I hope they do, or at least the people I interact with, they do.
For sure. So obviously you have to scale that to some degree. I don't want to get too
Yeah.
far down the road of like the economics and the business side of this and stay on experience, but there has to be some mini U's because you can't be on the floor of
No,
many
everyone
restaurants.
is a mini. Everyone is a mini me. And I always say I lead by example. If the owner and restaurateur is on the floor, speaking to the people, caring about it, talking to everyone, the whole team is going to be like that. If they care about the little nuances, if they listen to what the people, you know, sometimes when people are on their way out, they'd be like bickering or saying something. And you can see that from the body language. I go directly, did something happen? Are you okay? Is everything okay? And sometimes you can fix a small problem or misunderstanding or a complaint, and that makes that person a loyal customer forever. That you actually gave a damn, that you asked them, that you tried to fix the problem, that you picked up a phone after a review and said, what was it about your experience that you did not enjoy? Can we make it better for you? We'd like your feedback to actually understand what happened. And I think everyone in my team is the same. From the general managers to the restaurant managers to the waiters. The waiters have this rapport with the clients that's a lot of them start mimicking me in a way and how I like joke around with some people. And I find that very endearing because it's like they impersonate certain aspects about my personality and I enable them to actually do that. Because in a lot of restaurants, especially in Saudi, there's this barrier between guest and server, guest and manager. There's not this closeness or conversation or relationship. that you have. And I encourage my team to have that relationship, to talk to the guests, to see what they like, anticipate their wants and needs, and especially if it's repeat customers. And we have customers that come on a daily basis and do the rotation between the restaurants. So we keep the profiles. We know them when they walk in. We greet them. We know their likes and dislikes, what they like on the table as soon as they get. These little things, they make a difference. They make everyone feel ownership to the place. And when they see something that's not right, phone gets picked up and I get a call. I went and this happened. I'm like, oh, thank you for the feedback. I'll be working on it. But it's not just me. Everyone is like this.
Is there a particular way that you train for that? Like, let's say you're opening up a new restaurant and you have to get a whole new staff, which I'm sure you borrow from some of your others, and you do that thing. But like, is there a particular way that you found that you train them to understand that from the beginning?
It is part of the manuals, 100%. We have manuals of how to talk, how to dress, how to handle certain things. And we do a lot of role playing, and especially people who have never been to Saudi, who come to Saudi for the first time. Sometimes they come with preconceived notions on, no, we cannot do this, or we cannot. I'm like, no, relax, right? And as I told you, every restaurant has a persona of service, right? Some restaurants are a bit more formal, a bit more, there's the space between the guest and the server without having that much of a gap, but it's a different. Other ones are more fun and easygoing. Some of them have the very close relationship, like in the members club, the servers and the members are very close. Sometimes to the point I'm like, no, it shouldn't be that close. But like, they joke, they talk about things. They even know like about their families and their kids, and it becomes like a family.
The connections is really inherent to the experience that they're having, right? That emotional thing. When you have a connection, like all the examples you just gave, the guest is like, oh, there's care here because they took my phone away from me, or they brought me that extra thing, or they asked me if I wanted this or that, or if I was cold, they brought me, whatever the things are. Which again brings us back to that creates a memory that's unique.
Speaking of cold, we have the terrace next to the Good Butcher, and it's right on the water. And I think it was December or Jan. It was a bit chilly. And we had blankets, extra blankets. We had a guest that actually fell asleep in the terrace, and he was alone, on his own. We just left him until the end of service, and he woke up. He looked around. He's like, "What time is it?" I'm like, you can sleep as much as you want.
I mean, that might be the ultimate restaurant experience. You can have a meal, go to a place, and fall asleep and nap. I mean, that's incredible. For those who don't necessarily know, some of the restaurants that we were talking about, you have one set of restaurants, at least that's how I experienced it, where you have a Greek restaurant, which has Betsy the Turtle, that is a steak restaurant that is in a very unique space. And then you have a members club that's also a very unique looking space. So you have three different experiences that are radically different, but all have this same sort of hospitality thing that you're talking about, which is also what that caring bit is. Like, you left that guy sleeping because you cared for him, which is hospitality. And in that moment, that particular guest, that's what that guest needed, and so you cared for him in that way. But I set up those three different experiences that are all in one place because it's so unique that you can kind of have a really different experience. Can you talk a little bit about how, you don't tell me the whole story about how you designed it, but what I want to hone in on is like how you added certain parts to those different spaces that are all really in one place, and what you would ideally like a guest to feel when they go to each of them.
The Greek restaurant, Elia, was done from scratch. There was an old structure from the 90s, like a steel structure, but it was totally not. There was no building, there was no rocks, there was nothing that was created for that space. And then initially, remember, as I told you, they wanted to do one restaurant, the landlord. And it was a huge space. And I don't really believe in very big restaurants. I don't like very big restaurants. And I feel that a room needs to see all its spaces. You can't just have a restaurant that's so big and you can't see the first. And because of the circular space of the building, it's a very interesting shape. Having a round or a semicircle, I felt that the energy will be lost in a loop. So I try to break it into different experiences. Now, the top structure, that used to be the old Nobu. And before we entered into that space, and before that, it was a restaurant. And before that, it was a restaurant. So it's quite an old building. But from day one, I've always said that this space is a steakhouse. It can't be anything other than that. I mean, when I worked for Jeddah Season in 2019, we actually opened a Nusrat in that building for a pop-up. It was lovely. So when Nobu vacated that location, I was like, me, pick me, pick me, I want that. And yeah, The Good Butcher was a concept I already had developed for something I wanted to develop down the line. But then I tweaked it and changed it a bit around to work in the space. And I had to like redesign the space and do all the work that needs to be done. But I feel that in that area is like when a person has 3 kids, each child has a totally different personality, but the upbringing and the parents are the same. They're 3 babies. Each one is totally different. One had another child, which is the terrace of The Good Butcher, a total different segment, total different kind of service. But we keep evolving, right? We keep having more restaurants. Anasa in the Red Sea is the Greek restaurant, but it has nothing to do with Elia. They're both Greek, but when you enter, they're totally different. But again, you feel that they're the same. It has this charm to it, I think. And I feel that the ethos that I carry with me translates in the spaces.
One of the things about The Good Butcher that I personally was fascinated about was that there's a market in it, or a butcher shop in it. You said before that you had The Good Butcher idea before the space, and why were you like, let's also allow people to buy meat from it?
Okay, so the real story, the unedited one, is coming out. Now, I did the concept of The Good Butcher because I personally wanted to be a certified female butcher. And I wanted to go to Australia to be trained by this master butcher in Australia and all of that. But I never got to do that. The idea is really nice. And I've always believed that the relationship between the person and their butcher is a very personal relationship. And with supermarkets and that whole industrialization of meat manufacturing and all of that, that relationship broke. People didn't trust the butcher anymore. I wanted to reconnect the guest and the butcher together and build that trust through showing them what we're buying, showing them where we're buying it from. So this is the whole idea. On the menu, we tell you, we've bought this meat from this farm in Australia. This is from Russia. This is the name of the farm. You can actually look it up. We show them the actual cuts of meat. So it's building on that trust and that relationship. Eventually, maybe I'll get certified as a butcher. But, we learn how to butcher meat and everything in culinary school and whatever. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted like a title.
Right.
This is where the butcher shop came, the whole idea. But we still accomplished that without me being behind the counter. But it translated lovely.
And it also adds a very unique component to the restaurant, where it's a slightly
You go to the restaurant, you have the steak, you like it, you want to go and make it at home, you can buy it and make it at home.
That's great. One of the themes, clearly, that we've been talking about is how much you put yourself into your concepts. And you keep coming back to, like, I do this because I wanted it, and then I wanted to give it to somebody else, and we put it in there this way, and then now they get to experience it. So it is very intimate, the way that you talk about that.
Isn't that what this is all about? Is having something authentic and real, coming from, let's say, one person to another. If it's just a cookie cutter, cut and paste approach, it feels like it too, right? If it's out of a box and it's not coming from here because you actually believe in it. And sometimes when you see the belief in other people's eyes, you believe because of them. And because of their conviction to whatever they're doing, you follow in that footsteps. And this is how it works. Even when you create something, if you create it really, really from your heart and because you love it and you want to share something you love and what you really, really believe in, not because it's going to make money or because it's we want to make money, of course. But I'm doing something because I love it and I want to share it with you and I want to share it with your family. I want to share it with my children, with my family. And that translates. I insist that people do feel that, because if you're using a formula and you're just punching numbers in and just looking into how is this going to turn out and what's the IRR in this and what's the whatever in that, you walk into a restaurant and it's cold and it's not warm and it's not hugging you and the food is not making you go like this when you're eating. And it translates. You have to put yourself into what you're doing. People use that you have to remove yourself and be objective, and I'm not that person. I go wholeheartedly into the project. My family becomes part of it. My daughters are in the restaurants. When we do something new, I sit with them, I talk with them, I talk with my mother, my family, I talk to the people I know and share what's happening here and here to see how it resonates, because they know not to yes ma'am me. If it's just in my head, they'll tell me, I don't think this, no, maybe you should look at it. So it's always something that's evolving within me. And I'm very happy and very proud to put part of myself or part of who I am into whatever I'm doing. This is why it works.
And your restaurants are very successful. And what you're really saying is that you're proving that a human approach, not a spreadsheet approach, is
the spreadsheet is important. No,
yeah,
the spreadsheet needs to be right next to me. They need to keep me in check, because if it was up to me, I'll buy art and flowers and trees and whatnot.
Of course, it's a balance, but you're leading with the human aspect of it, which is very much what restaurants are, but lots of other spaces. In this era especially, it feels like that gets forgotten for the spreadsheet a lot, and you lead with that.